Silencer Central. Folks, if you want to learn something new right alongside me, check it out at silencercentral.com. I've never put a suppressor on any of my weapons, but I'm going to start now, and I'm using Silencer Central to help get me started because they walk you through the whole process, to include you can ship the rifle to them, they'll thread it, they'll put it on, and they will ship it back, and you can make payments on the whole thing while you wait for all the licensing to get approved, which they take care of for you. It's a great process, and it's a great company, American manufacturer, right there in South Dakota, and we are really excited to be partnering with them. So check it out at silencercentral.com or give them a call at 888-781-8778 and let them know that you heard it on the Western Huntsman. Hoffman Boots is my go-to boot. I love the Explorers in the 8-inch, and they've got the Vibram sole, totally waterproof, no break-in period. They just glue your feet to the mountain. You can't ask for more out of a boot, and you don't have to break the bank to get a pair. So check it out at hoffmanboots.com. Again, another American company. Local North Idaho friend of mine who runs this company decided to make some great hunting boots for all people that are serious about getting into the backcountry to chase elk and deer and bear and everything else out there. So check it out at hoffmanboots.com. Use promo code all caps lock Huntsman10 at checkout to save you 10%. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman, your host, coming at you from the Broken Tan studio right here in Heron, Montana, and brought to you by Eastman's Hunting Journals. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We are rolling into the winter months here, and as we've been talking, usually what we do is we kind of transition from, how to kill an elk, how to kill a bear, into more of a what's going on in the hunting community, the hunting space, what we're up against, the anti-hunting movement, things along those topics. And I hope there's nobody out there rolling their eyes at this, because this is important stuff that affects us all. And I'll be honest with you, when I started this show back in 2019, it was our first episode was released on Christmas Eve of 2019, right before COVID-19 hit and all that kind of stuff. And the reason I started the show, ladies and gents, was because I have concerns. I had concerns about the future of hunting, and I was seeing what the anti-hunting movement was doing. It was growing different, whether it was through legislative action, petitions to, just some of these organizations trying to fund their way through, getting what their ideology is aligned with, which is, basically the exact opposite of what everybody else's is. So I say that to highlight, that was, we're coming on to 4 years ago when I started that. And I will tell you that my concern for the future of hunting is the concern is double than it was 4 years ago. Things have gotten worse. There's things coming out of the woodwork it seems like sometimes in all directions. And it tends to come out in the winter. And so that is why I continue to hammer away with these kind of episodes, because we have to figure out a way to get this information in front of sportsmen, because I was just talking to the guests this week, and I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are passionate hunters, but they're asleep at the wheel when it comes to what is possibly coming down the pike. And it doesn't matter if you're in Washington or New Mexico or Montana or New Hampshire, for heck's sake. It's coming from all sorts of different places, different directions. And this ideology that is kind of bred out of this. I don't know how to say that. It's kind of bred out of this extremist view, this and extremism in general. Much of it from the left, the political left, and this is where it's kind of derived out of, is growing, and their voices are getting louder and they're getting more united. So that is why I've been following a guy named Gary Strassburg. Did I say your name right, brother?
You did. Yes, sir.
Nailed it. All right. Right on. We're off to a good start, man. I wanted to invite him on. I've been following him on Instagram for a while, and he's been keeping us apprised with a lot of his videos and stuff like that. If you're, what's your Instagram handle, Gary?
Just my name, Gary Strassburg. That's it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you joining me and coming on the show, and let's see if we could make some waves and get some more information out there so we can put it in front of, especially for you guys in Washington. So, and before we do that, why don't you give us the bird's eye view of who you are, how you grew up, and how you ended up here talking to a guy about hunting issues in Washington.
I know, right? Here we are. My name's Gary Strassburg, born and raised in Washington State. I'm 55, so I'm an old fart. I've been hunting most of my life, fishing for more than I've been hunting, but still, I remember tagging along with the old man while we were out hunting and, making too much noise and all that stuff we all did when we were kids.
Yes, sir.
But now and I joined the Navy in 1986 and ended up making a 20-year career out of that. And the Navy dropped me off and the Navy dropped me off up here in Whidbey Island in Northwest Washington. I just never left. And so that's where I've got kids. And now I'm remarried with a gal, been married 10 years now. We got 6 kids between us. We got all kinds of grandkids. So, and that's what I'm really here for with this anti-hunting crap is I want to make sure my grandkids can still hunt.
Yeah.
There's no way I couldn't imagine looking my grandkid in the eye when they say, why can't we hunt anymore, Papa? And we say, you know what? Your Papa worked his butt off. Your Papa did it whatever he could.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to be said with that. My entire season this year was, I don't want to say it was ruined because it wasn't, but my entire season from spring bear all the way, with the exception of September elk, was all focused on taking my girls out and having them hunt. And we had a little success, but it cost me.
Spring bear?
Oh yeah, man. We love our spring bear season. And we're gonna talk about that. It's crazy. Hey, what'd you do in the Navy, man?
Believe it or not, I was an air traffic controller in the Navy, and that's what I'm still doing.
Oh, gotcha. Cool. So you weren't like being air traffic control. Did you deploy on ships and
I did.
What year did you retire?
2006.
Oh, okay. So I was in the Marines.
You were in the
from
Marines
99 to 03. So I'm always curious if we ever cross trails when I talk to another military guy. So
I know I was on the USS Tarawa during the Gulf War.
Okay.
And then did a couple other things on that. Then I was on the USS Carl Vinson through the early 90s. And then I did 2 tours at Whidbey Island and then schooling and all that other crap. But
yeah. Okay. So I think we had the Tarawa was with us at some point, but I was on the first deployment. What was that? USS Ashland and then the USS Tortuga. And they were both LSDs.
Oh,
and yes, indeed. It got pretty Western in some of those open seas for sure. So
yeah, those things they move around a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So cool. No, that's good information. So that's what you do now. You're air traffic control for like local airport or
U.S. Navy.
Oh, really?
Yep. The Department of Defense. I work as a U.S. Navy air traffic controller up here at Naval Air Station Whidbey Island, and we control all the F-18s and all the other platforms we have here. Plus, we have airspace that goes all over the Puget Sound. So we own airspace, a lot of it. And so we deal with not just Navy traffic, but light civil traffic and everything else. So,
man, that's cool. I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah. You know what? A lot of people don't.
I saw you posted this video where you like got up on a ladder and where it was like, hey, you got to clean your gutters out, and then you gave us an update on the Washington Commission. And so I had it in my mind you were similar to me working on roofs or something. I don't know. But
that
you're
was
way
my own
smarter.
gutter.
Well, good for you. I'm proud to see you're cleaning out your gutters and taking care of that. Not
Yes.
a lot of people do that.
No.
So tell me a little bit about where we're at now. I had some guys from the Conservation Coalition on.
Yeah.
Guys and gal a few weeks ago, and they kind of brought us up to speed. And now I'd like to hear kind of from your perception as to how you got involved in this kind of so-called debate in Washington. Doesn't seem like much of a debate sometimes, because it seems like hunters just get steamrolled.
Yeah, it's pretty one-sided sometimes.
Yeah, by values and ideology, and it's and so it's really hard to combat. But how'd you get involved in it, and we'll take it from there.
I when I found out about the things that were happening with the commission in Spring Bear, it was a friend of mine that got a hold of me, and it's like, hey, do you know about this? And like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So being a Washingtonian, the way things are set up, you're supposed to not have to know who the commission is. They're supposed to follow their mandates and make sure that we have, to perpetuate and all that stuff, and make sure we have game and blah, blah, blah. And when I found out that they were talking about removing Spring Bear, I'm like, holy cow. And then they were talking about this vote that was supposed to come up that was only supposed to be they were going to lower some tag allocations.
Yeah.
They were going to something that was supposed to be minor. And then they found a couple of the commissioners, the anti-hunting commissioners, found a loophole, and they brought it up for a vote. And then they said, well, if we can't figure out the rules and regulations, then we just won't have a season.
God,
and that's where it started. And ever since then, I've spoken at every single commission meeting since then. So that was in 2021.
Yeah, I think I was going to say I want to say it was spring of 21.
Yeah, spring of 21,
because there was some
fall of 22.
Yeah, and then there was like some discussion and actually some hope, some vague hope that 2023 there'd be a Spring Bear again.
Yes, there was.
And then that kind of got shattered as well.
Yeah, it did. Every time. There's been numerous petitions put forward, and it literally, as soon as they read the petition, they just shut down. There's no debate about it. There's no, we need more information. It's just, oh, you want Spring Bear again? Well, never mind. We're done talking about it. And that's where we're at. You just don't want to talk about it. Well, we've got a sore ass over that. And we're going to continue to have one.
Yeah. I like the way you put that, a sore ass about it. I have a sore ass about it, and it doesn't even really affect me. And it's just, we're in a position where, we've had a lot of conversations on this show where it's like, okay, here's what's going on. This is why these commissioners are wrong. This is why these commissioners are right. And, we're going to bitch and gripe and moan about it. And just nothing really happens. Nothing comes out of it tangible. And that's why I was kind of, I thought about, okay, I just did the Washington Coalition group, the kind of the panel discussion. And those guys were all great to have on the show, and I really enjoyed that episode, actually. And so it was like, man, I don't know if I want to do another one this close to that one, but at the same time, I think it's time that we start looking at perhaps a different approach as to what we're doing here to help Washington sportsmen and women, combat this hostile commission side that is. Because it's and we kind of touched on this in that last episode. This is not a thing where we could just present facts to them that are logical, and they look at that and say, oh, okay, so less than 1% of the Spring Bears that were killed were actual lactating sows, so that's not like a huge deal. Okay, there's what, 30,000 bears in the state of Washington, so the 200 some odd tags that were given out or allocated for Spring Bear really isn't making a dent. Okay, so it's not that kind of conversation. What this is value driven and ideology driven, and they have this proclivity to bring this ideology, ignore what the science is, or in other cases manipulate what the science is, and just bring these beliefs to the forefront and act like they're serving the people of Washington, to include outdoorsmen. We know they're not doing that. They're not
No.
serving the animals. They're not serving the wildlife. They're not serving conservation, and they're certainly not serving sportsmen. And so, in your opinion, did I miss anything there? Where are we at with all this? Did I miss something? Do you want to add anything?
No, you didn't miss anything, because it's exactly correct. Because I mean, we've seen the science. We've seen the state biologists sit down and give them the exact science they need to hear, and all they do is they kick the can down the road and go, "We need more. That's not the science. That's not the right science we want. We need more. We need more. We need more information." Well, it doesn't fit their narrative. That's why it doesn't fit. So they just keep on kicking the can down the road to just say, "Nope, we're not going to have a spring bear season because we don't have the right science." Well, what is the right science? So that's where we get into this, where they just continue. It doesn't matter what our biologists say. They just it's all emotion driven, and I say that emotion. I mean, sure, we're all emotional too, but it's different. It's a different emotion, and
well, obviously we are very. I think that hunters, just by our very nature, are very emotional people, and I'm an emotional guy. I get very emotional about hunting and what hunting rights mean to me. I get emotional. Shoot, I get emotional when I kill a deer and walk up to it, and I don't like that feeling. I don't like that feeling, and it's just I think just by nature we are emotional. However, what comes with that is we are the side of this discussion that has the decades and millennia behind us, the time, and it's not like I heard somebody say, I don't remember where this was. Slavery was around for a long time. Does that make it right? And it's not the same kind of thing.
No,
it's not. Humans have been managing animals since the dawn of time. That is the essence of our relationship with wildlife. Is if you look back even into like ancient Rome and the Greeks and the philosophical discussions that were had centered around wildlife back then, they had concerns for wildlife back then and wanted to ensure that there was a future for wildlife. And they were also hunters. These weren't people sitting around saying, "Oh, killing a bear is bad. We're going to cancel your season." And so the point, I guess, it's a long way of me saying is we have the science, we have the longevity, we have the history, and a lot of these anti-hunting folks, they kind of tend to come at this like, well, back in the early or late 1800s, early 1900s, it was market hunting that killed all the populations. So good job, hunters. That's what you did. Okay, but who brought those populations back?
Yeah.
Who are the real stakeholders here?
Yeah, we realized that's what was happening, and
exactly. That's where that's what the history is.
Yeah.
That's what the facts are, and that's what the science is. We have almost 30 million white-tailed deer running around the lower 48 because of hunters. PETA didn't bring them back. And I'm kind of beating a dead horse. I've said this a million times.
It is what it is.
So that's where my frustration lies and my secondary part to this, my frustration lies in the fact that I feel like sometimes we've got these echo chambers going where you and we share the same values when it comes to wildlife management and conservation and hunting and the traditions of hunting and just the humanistic right to have a connection with nature in which we go out and pursue these animals. And
yeah, absolutely.
They lack this, but we also have this issue where hunters tend to focus on the wrong things. Man, an example of this, Gary, like it was a shit show the other day on Facebook because Idaho did the non-resident tag purchase, day, December 1, it's like D-Day of hunting.
I know it well.
Yeah, I'll bet you do. And man, the comments, the vitriol and the hostility that I saw all day, and I purposely kept getting on Facebook. I was curious. And this is what people are focused on. People are posting in there, well, I'm like 43,000 person in line. And they're bitching about the system. They're bitching about how IDFG, does this. And I agree. There's reason to be upset about that. It is kind of unfair and not super convenient for non-residents. And then you have resident hunters just railing on these non-residents who are just trying to get tags. And it's like, guys, what are we doing? Why are we ripping each other apart over tag allocation, tag purchases? in the state of Idaho. It's all over Facebook. Non-hunters are seeing this vitriol and this hostility, and yet but at the same time, nobody's talking about what's going on with the Washington Commission or in New Mexico or in Colorado. What do you say? Where are we at with all this in terms of? Oh, go ahead. I cut you off.
Sorry.
I'm worked up tonight.
I know, and it's easy to get worked up, and that's just it. It's like everybody would rather bitch about someone shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor, a traditional bow, than they would worrying about. I mean, I saw a lot of that stuff you're talking about too. Because I was in that waiting room. My stepson almost had a chance at a tag in the area we wanted to go, because he was like number 5,000 and I was 29,000. So it is what I mean. Last time I hunted Idaho was 2018 when I drove to Orofino and bought a tag over the counter. So
well,
I understand that frustration, and I honestly understand the frustration from the residents too. But it could be worse. It could be Washington. I mean, literally, I see some of the shit that people bitch about in other states, and like, dude, you have no idea. I mean, and so that was one of our main goals in the coalition, was to get people to stop being so damn narrow-minded and focus on what is more important. You want to bitch about some cat shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor, or do you want to bitch to the commission about saving your hunting season so you can actually use that 6.5 Creedmoor? And so it's. I mean, you and I were talking about this off air. There's still people to this day I can walk up to, or just in a conversation, I start talking about the Fish and Wildlife Commission, and the first thing, they can't do that. Like, well, they are. No, they can't. Yeah. They can't do it. Like, they are.
No, they did. They already have.
And they already have, exactly. And then they keep on saying that this can't happen. I'm like, I don't know where you're getting your information, but that's what we're trying to get to. Is we're trying to get to those people. We're also trying to reach the non-hunting public in a good light, putting hunters in a good light, because it's coming down right now that the anti-hunting groups in Washington are really putting the screws to us to show us as a bunch of dirtbags.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's succeeding or not.
It's not that hard for them to do that, because you have that 2-3% of hunters that they want to post these videos on social media that paint us as a bunch of heartless, redneck, backcountry, drunk ass fucking, whatever you want to call it. And sadly, those are the videos that will get shown to the general public. And
it is. And we have proof. We have proof that, I mean, not only just anti-hunters, but there's commissioners that cruise through those Facebook groups and they cruise through those forums. They see that shit. Trust me. And you try to tell people that people don't know when to shut their mouths. They can't shut their mouths when it comes to certain things. I mean, I've been accused by a couple of people recently that I've been being too soft. You're being too nice. Man, sometimes you got to come to someone else's level to try to reason with people. And that's what we're doing with the commission. We are trying to reason with people that were unreasonable before. Have we been successful? In some regards, yes. In other regards, we're probably never going to be successful. But those are the extreme commissioners.
That's a great way to put that, from a sense of, because I'm like in an impasse with it, Gary, and this is why I wanted to talk to you. I'm like at this impasse where I've been super aggressive. I've been mean. I mean, hell, I have a bumper sticker on my website that says, "Demand Lorna Smith resign." And it sells. Like, people buy that sucker, and like it's crazy. I'm saying that because I'm not sure if that's the right approach. I really don't know that I'm going about this. I just heard Randy Newberg just did a really good 4-part series on his podcast. Yeah, he did. And he had one of the former commissioners on from Washington.
She's a jewel, man. She
Kim's
really is
a rock star, man, and that's. That's a salt of the earth kind of people that we need. Here you have this doctor that is just passionate about the outdoors, that served on a commission, non-hunter, and she looked at the information that was given to her and made a wise decision based on that without the emotion. That is a stellar commissioner. And so, by listening to that and just really thinking about this, I feel like maybe my approach of being aggressive and calling out some of these commissioners, I've called them names. I've invited them on my show. They refused me, and I've gone off the handle over that. And it's like, if you're serving in some public position, I think you should come on shows like this and discuss why. Like, it doesn't have to be a debate. Anyways, I'm wondering.
If you go back 3 years ago and look at some of the very first meetings that I spoke at, you want to talk about pissed. And I wasn't nice. I didn't swear, but and I learned early on too, because I believe it might have been Mike Hers. He actually called, I think, Lorna out by name during a meeting, and it was shut down right there. And then we don't want you talking names or whatever. So, but you can get your point across to who you're talking to.
Yeah,
they know exactly who you're talking to. And I like you just said, I was not nice, but I got way less response than we do now. And what's the old saying? You can catch more flies with honey than you can vinegar. That's kind of the perspective I've been coming at this. And so I've been trying to think about how to do this, because you were just talking about how you're trying to have like a reasonable conversation with maybe some of these commissioners. And I'm going to reach out. If I could track down the email, I'm going to reach out to one of these commissioners, which, by the way, they shouldn't shut down public meetings because a public commissioner was called out by her name. Mike can call her out by her name. I'm sorry, she's serving on a public entity. It's not. There should be no hidden things. There should be no secrets kept. And so, and one of my points when that was brought up, one of my points at the next meeting was that you're doing all this. You want to take away hunting seasons, and you want to talk bad about hunters. Well, own that shit. If you want to own it, then own it. And don't hide behind, I don't want my name being said. So we had, there was a lot of turmoil. It was very tumultuous back then. It's a lot. We've had this huge paradigm shift recently on how we act at our commission meetings. And you know what? It's working.
There's a lot of great trail cameras out there. I've run the Tacticams, and that's a great system, especially their cell cameras. I've run a lot of different brands that I've recommended to you guys in the past, but the right fit at the right time is the Spypoint trail cameras. I have a couple of the Flex G36s that are cell cams. They do a really good job for keeping track of everything that's going on my property. And I also have for, kind of out in the backcountry, I've got these Force Pros. Man, the picture quality on those Force Pros is just amazing. If you guys saw some of the bear pictures I was showing you during Spring Bear, that was a Force Pro. Really great cameras. I'm really excited that they chose to sponsor the show, because I've been using Spypoint for a long time, and I think you guys are going to be just as happy as I am with them. And check them out at spypoint.com and let them know the Western Huntsman sent you. Some of you might be old enough to remember back in the day when you can go to Walmart and get you a Savage rifle for very cheap. And they did a good job, but they weren't equipped for some of the hardcore hunting out there that we do today. If that's a memory that you have with Savage, like I do, I'm telling you, it's not like that anymore. Savage Arms is one of the premier firearms manufacturers dedicated to us hunters. I have this freaking Savage 110. It's the Apex Hunter, and this thing is amazing. I love the AccuTrigger. You can also get them with the AccuFit, which allows you to adjust the stock. So if you're buying them for youth hunters or whatever, or just, rifles fit you different. It's so flexible. It's so perfect for every hunter. It's just not the same Savage that it was 30, 40 years ago. It's a great firearm for everyday use while hunting, and they support hunters and they support this show, and I really appreciate Savage Arms. Check them out anywhere firearms are sold, or go to savagearms.com to find out more. So where did that come from? The paradigm shift? Is that something you just kind of thought, man, this hostility thing isn't working, let's try this?
We did. Collectively, we've got our main, there's just some main coalition members, like Mike and myself and Joel, Dane and Andy and Josh and a couple others. We kind of talk amongst ourselves as far as just via text message and shit. But we do have a main group that we all talk together. And within that main group, we were kind of like, you know what? it's time to kind of change. We got to try something, because what we were doing, it was getting the same results. We were getting nowhere. So we had a couple of our commissioners on, Andy Elliott, the Broadside podcast.
Yep, I
And
heard
we
that
had a
one.
couple of commissioners on that podcast. We've had a couple of biologists on that podcast, and it's really done well for us to put information out via that platform. And I believe when you can kind of cross that line where you can actually have a decent discussion with someone with normal discourse, instead of playing radio, you talk or I talk, you listen.
Yeah.
I transmit, you receive. And when you get past that, and you can actually have a decent conversation with somebody, you actually get shit done.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I'm working on something with, I reached out to an organization that I believe they're based out of Jackson, Wyoming. I think, because this Washington situation is a big deal, right? And then we also have these pro-wolf advocate organizations that are just absolutely extreme in relisting wolves in the Northern Rockies, and they make these posts that are like, oh, if we don't relist wolves tomorrow, by Sunday, all the wolves in the Northern Rocky Mountain region are going to be dead. And I'm reading through some of those, and I'm reading some of their posts, and you know what I did, and this was just like last night. I sent them a message, and the message was, hey, you should come on my podcast and talk about this wolf situation, because I think that at the end of the day, in a weird, bizarre twist of fate, we want the same things. We want thriving wildlife. We just see how they are managed very differently. And I want to have that conversation. I know there's folks that listen to this show that will totally disagree with this, but I don't want wolves wiped off the planet. I don't want them. I don't want them gone.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
And honestly, it's unrealistic to even have that expectation. That's never going to happen. They were reintroduced in 1995. They're here to stay. So we need to stop with the whole shoot, shovel, shut up bullshit, because it's not going to get us anywhere. Yeah, smoke a pack a day. And back in like 06, 07, all over North Idaho, everybody's truck had that decal on the back, smoke a pack a day, or SSS, and all these things or whatever. And most of these guys had never even actually seen a wolf in the wild, and they hadn't heard a wolf howl. They don't even know how to find a wolf, and so I'm not trying to trash folks on our side of it, but there is a time when it's time for people like us to say, okay, it's time to move on from that outdated philosophy and act like there's some realistic level of expectation that wolves are going to go away. They're not. Yeah. What we have to do, they're here. And what we have to do is find a way to maintain wolf levels that are manageable, that are not detrimental to every other species on the landscape, where the wolves can thrive and so can the ungulates. And that's achievable. I feel like that's achievable. We're getting closer to that in the state of Idaho, because trappers have become so effective at reducing wolf numbers here. I'm starting to see more elk. I'm starting to see more mule deer. Actually, I don't know if I'm starting to see. I go back and forth with that. Some days I'll go out and I'll be like, man, there's mule deer everywhere. And then another day it's like, oh, the wolves have wiped them all out. It depends on how much hunting skill I have that day.
I was the last time I hunted Idaho was 2018. And we were up in Lolo, ground zero.
Man, ground zero, man.
Yeah. So we were up in there, and we drove all the way up. We were hunting up on, my wife and I, we were hunting up on Smith Ridge. And we ran into an old timer up there. He goes, I know there's nothing up here. He goes, but you know what? He goes, I can't not hunt up here anymore. So we walked with this guy up this logging road, and we got up and we paralleled the top of Smith Ridge. And he was telling us about he goes, not even, very long ago, he goes, you guys would be tagged out right now. He goes, there were elk on this ridge all over the place. And then an elk bugled. Like, you got to be kidding me. And it's October 10th. I'd never hunted, with a rifle in the rut. That was one of the coolest things ever to bugle with. So there were elk there, but dude, he was way down, in a draw somewhere. But and we heard wolves. I got a friend of mine from high school that lives over in Kamiah, and I said, so what do you do? I go, do you just call them? He goes, was just howl. It was just make a howl noise.
Yeah.
So my wife and I stood on this ridge, and it was starting to get dark, and we started howling, and they howled back.
Oh yeah, man. You can totally get them talking. It's a great,
a little eerie being a Washingtonian, being over there where we haven't got wolves on the west side.
It's interesting. You can it's kind of fun at nighttime in September. I love going out at like midnight. Me and my buddy Steve Johnson did this. Steve, if you're listening, shout out. But we'll go out and we'll start howling with our bugle tubes. We'll just, in the bugle tube, and you get wolves talking back. And that's a great way to locate them. You'll never call them in to kill them that way. What you do is you locate them that way, and then you close the distance and start doing like some kind of rabbit in distress or something along those lines. A fawn. Phelps has this great little blacktail fawn in distress call. That's worked pretty well. But like there's guys up here in North Idaho that have really nailed that process down, like Tom Schneider of Stuck in the Rut. The dude is just super efficient at finding and killing wolves, and that's basically the process he uses. And I'm not going to give out too much information because I took his wolf course, so that's how I know some of this stuff. But
my friend from Cami, Mike Winteringer, Mike, if you're listening, I'm pretty sure he listens to your show. So Mike Winteringer, he's the one that he told me the exact same thing that you just said.
Yeah. So and that's, I think that's part of it. You talking about wolves and hearing those wolves, I saw the light in your eye. I get the same thing. Cool. I get excited, man. I like having wolves out there. There's some authenticity to the wild backcountry when you're hearing wolves howling outside your tent, and it's incredible. It's an incredible, like, think about all the people, Gary, that like never go to places like that. They live in these big urban areas. They'll never hear in real life. They'll never hear a wolf howl like that, and the hair on the back of their neck won't ever stand up because of the eeriness of how a wolf sounds. And so I reached out to this group, and I'm like, I think we want the same things. We just have a different, value set as to how we achieve this. And I think that we as hunters have blinders on because we're running around saying, let's get rid of all the wolves, shoot, shovel, and shut up, smoke a pack a day and hell with the wolves and blah, blah, blah. That's never going to happen. But they also have blinders on as well, where they're like, we need to relist wolves because wolves are endangered. Okay, explain that, because they're 10 times beyond what the objective number was when they were released in 1995. So they're not endangered. So don't give me that hyperbole. How do we come to a conclusive agreement as to which you can understand that there is a place for hunting and trapping, and we can understand that there is a place for wolves on the landscape? Because that's the only reality that exists. Nothing on either side is going to be a reality. And so that's what I want to get to with this Washington Commission discussion. Because I know that they're, and hopefully you could fill us in on this, but I know that they're talking about taking bear hunting and mountain lion hunting back to like 2019 levels, where you can only kill one bear, and it's a dramatically shortened season for mountain lion. And what's going on with that? Can you update us on that?
Yeah, it was a petition that was put out by Washington Wildlife First, I believe, the Humane Society of the United States, everybody's favorite, Center for Biological Diversity, and then there's like the Mountain Lion Lovers Foundation or something. I can't remember what it's called, but there was a collective group of them that all put this together, and they petitioned the commission, and it's actually up for vote. I believe it might even be this next meeting on the 14th and 15th. It's up for vote by the petition or by the commission on the 7th of this month, on December. The State of Fish and Wildlife Department, the biologists, are going to present information to the commission in regards to all this, and the state is already leaning towards telling the commission to disapprove it. So you know how well that's going to go over.
Wow.
So,
okay, wait a minute. The presentation from the biologist is on the 7th, which is 2 days from now, and the vote is when?
14th and 15th.
Of December.
I have to look at the agenda item, but I believe it's being voted on the 14th or 15th.
Of December.
Yes.
So one Christmas present to sportsmen in Washington could be a reduced bear allocation and shorter mountain lion seasons, cougar seasons.
Possibly. It's possible.
Okay, so is there a public comment period?
There is. There's
Okay.
public comment period on Friday and Saturday. So if you want to speak, which we encourage everybody, and you don't got to be from Washington to speak, because like you'd said earlier, the tentacles of this shit stretch far and wide.
Okay. Sorry, Gary. You're talking the comment period is the 8th and 9th, like this coming weekend?
No, so there's no comment on the 7th.
Okay.
No public comment on the 7th. That is now you can watch it via Zoom. You can go to the Department of Fish and Wildlife Commission's webpage, click on their agenda item or their meetings, current meetings, and you can scroll down to that meeting. It lists them all from all year long, and then you can click on a Zoom link and actually watch that presentation on the 7th. I believe it starts at like oh crap, I think it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I got to work that day, so I won't be able to see it. But then, I'm sorry, the public comment.
Well, I mean, what's worst case scenario if you just stop paying attention to the airplanes and just watch the commission meeting? You know, I'm just kidding.
Put them in a holding pattern.
So if you're on the WDFW website in. Okay, I'll work through that later. It takes me forever to figure out a website.
All the way to the very bottom of the page, from their homepage, go all the way to the bottom of the page, and you'll see Fish and Wildlife Commission listed in one of those blocks in the bottom.
Yep, got it.
And you click on that, and it takes you to their homepage.
Contact. Okay. I guess what I'm doing here, Gary, I'm trying to figure out if they're like. It is currently, as we're recording this, it is December 5th. And my plan was to release it a week from today, next Tuesday, because my episodes generally come out on Tuesdays.
Okay.
And that's thanks by the shout out to Scott Reekers over at Eastman's. I've been putting them out at 3:30 a.m. on Tuesday mornings as instructed, sir. No, they don't instruct me. I'm totally kidding. But he told me that seems to be optimal. So, commission meetings. So if I click on that tab, upcoming meetings.
Click on the upcoming meetings.
Scheduled meetings for 2023.
Scroll all the way to the bottom on that.
Yep. Okay, I got it. December 14th, 16th through the 16th is the webinar. Carnivore Science Panel, December 7th. So that's a web conference. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to release this on Thursday morning, which is the 7th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because today's the 5th. So I'll put this out. It'll be a bonus episode then at that point, but I'm going to put it out on Thursday morning so that we can get the most teeth out of the information coming out of this. So I didn't mean to get you sidetracked there, buddy.
No, it's okay. It's quite all right. So because the carnivore biologists are going to give a presentation about this stuff, and you can also go to Northwest Sportsman's Magazine on their page. Go to their, I believe their, if it's their news articles or current news or new whatever. Andy Walgamot, the editor, he wrote back on December 1st, one of the biologists lays out why it needs to be basically shut down, why it needs to be not put into place. So it's an excellent article, and it tells you everything you need to know.
If you send me that article, I'll link it in the show notes
too,
by the way. I think that's a good idea. I haven't seen that article. I'd love to read that. So that's what the conversation is going to be centered around, is carnivore management kind of thing on the 7th. And then so on the 14th and 15th, that's when folks can get online and make comments, or do they have to sign up for comments ahead of time?
You have to sign up. And right now, I believe there's over 100 people already signed up for both days.
And do you have a bead on like what the mix of that 100 people are, like sportsmen, anti-hunters? What, like, is there a mix?
I would say right now, considering this is a petition for predators, because we know anti-hunters love predators. I'm going to say we're probably outnumbered right now in people speaking, because there was a shitload of them signed up early where we didn't get signed up in time. So we're filtering in, but they put you on the docket, first come, first served, and it just kind of goes as you go. So there's over 100 people signed up right now.
What about in-person commenting? Is that a thing, or is this all on Zoom? Meeting. Not on this meeting?
Yeah. So if you look at their meeting agenda and stuff like that, if it says it's a hybrid meeting, that means that there's actually in-person and Zoom. And in-person commentary always takes precedence over Zoom calls. So they'll always take people that showed up in person first. This one is just a webinar. So it's, or just a normal meeting that they have where there's no public input in person. It's only via Zoom.
Okay, it looks like there's a petition for, what day was this? Dang it, I just left. Friday at 3:45 is going to be petition, begin rulemaking for the return of recreational spring bear hunting seasons. Staff will brief the commission and ask for a decision regarding a petition that asks the commission to begin rulemaking for the return of the Washington State spring black bear hunting season. I'm going to go through all this.
That's a petition that was filed by a Washington State resident filed that petition, and it is along the line. So back in October 27th, 28th meeting, Commissioner Baker made a comment that the commission knew that they had enough bears to have a season for spring bear, but yet still all voted no on it. Well, not all of them voted, but they still voted no enough to where it got put down. So this petition uses those words that she said to try to get that pushed back through.
I know the guy that started this commission. I know Brad. Really good guy. He's super shy and won't come on my show, but I've asked him a few times. Brad, my friend, I know. Hopefully you're listening to this, but I could tell just by I'm scrolling through this petition. Heck of a job, brother. Thank you for doing that. So as mandated, he's pointing out, what the mandates are for the commission and, what is required. Man, that is what we need. That is proactivity right there. So, okay. So we've got that information out. What happens in January? We'll come back to this carnivore thing, but
so January, when we get into the January, they're going to start. So they're trying to push a conservation policy that kind of circumvents our mandates of the fish, of what they're mandated to do. So this draft conservation policy that they call it, they've been working on this thing for years.
And this is what everybody's talking about, refers to as the preservation policy, right?
This is the preservation policy. Yeah. And we actually had a petition of our own, a signature petition that I presented at the October 27th meeting to basically tell them to shit can it, to get rid of it. Because and I listed everything that was wrong with it. Excuse me. And so we're hoping that helped. I mean, they're still going to probably push it through. Right now, I believe that this was the problem with that policy they pushed through, they didn't consult anybody. They just pushed it through. Well, they consulted their anti-hunter cronies, but they didn't get a hold of any sportsman groups, any fishery groups, any commercial fishing groups, and the tribes. They never got a hold of any tribal groups either. Right now, that petition, I believe, is with the tribes because they neglected to include them. So we'll see where this goes. I think it's been edited about 15 or 16 times. So,
I'm just one of the reasons I'm asking some of these questions, Gary, is I have this fantasy of one of these in-person commission meetings where literally 10,000 hunters. I mean, there's 10,000 hunters in the state of Washington, right?
Yeah, that should be. We came close.
Tell me about that.
At the October 27th, 28th meeting, October 27th was the main one we had. We were pushing through the coalition to show up. Damn it, show up. This one's in Olympia. It's a big one. Show up. Whether you speak or not, show up. Dude, people did. We probably had a couple hundred hunters there. And we said, don't get all crazy and stuff, but wear a hunter orange cap. Wear your vest. Maybe even wear a camo shirt. Just something to let a Cabela shirt, a Sitka coat, something that showed people that you were a hunter. And we did. And it was phenomenal to see that many people. And now
that's fantastic.
And now they're saying the anti-hunting groups are trying to say that the reason why some of the votes have gone the way they have with the wolf petition and now this predator petition is because we intimidated them when we showed up.
So when you were there, did it seem like it was super intimidating or?
Well, considering So it's in the Natural Resources Building in Olympia. And it's also in the same building of the Fish and Wildlife Police. When the chief of Fish and Wildlife Police comes in there and says, "Man, this is cool," and shakes all your hands, we got commissioners that were taking photos with us. We got, the wildlife police are there.
See, and this is what I'm talking about. This is what that's exactly the stuff I'm talking about. When I start getting super fired up and I start losing my shit, it's because of stuff like the hyperbole that comes out of this anti-hunting movement. And, whether it's this wolf group talking about how wolves are on the brink of extinction here in the Northern Rockies, or if it's these folks, saying that a couple of hundred hunters showing up in orange hats are intimidating, they go out to the people, the non-hunter, and some of these non-hunters are just on the brink because they've never been exposed to what being an outdoorsman is. So they're right on the brink of being maybe easily swayed to be an anti-hunter and start activism alongside groups such as HSUS. HSUS has done nothing to bring conservation efforts and reclaim population objectives of any species in North America. They haven't done anything to that.
All they do is line their pockets.
They line their pockets. The CEO, Kitty Block. I don't know if she's still the CEO or not. She's making $400,000 a year just in salary, not to mention the backdoor deals that are made. And they run around claiming like they're the end all be all for wildlife management and conservation. But yet when you look at what they've actually achieved, they got some fur companies to stop selling in department stores and save the dog during the coronavirus. Like literally that's what their website says. I don't understand how people fall for this, but there's so many people out there that have never been exposed to hunting. They could be easily, through emotion, swayed into groups such as HSUS and be supportive of this anti-hunting movement. And these commissioners, they'll get slapped on their back for a good job by folks like this that don't actually understand the realities on the ground in Western landscapes and how wildlife management actually works. Because, and that is where I get frustrated, that hyperbole that is so effective. And how do we counter that, Gary? That's, I think, where one of my big things that I want to talk about is how do we counter that? And I've said this on a million times on the podcast, but like it is so easy for PETA. I always use PETA as an example. PETA is not actually our problem. PETA is just, they're a bunch of, like, I don't mind saying, they're off their rocker, man. Come on. I pick on them so bad on Facebook too, because I follow them on Facebook and I like troll them. I wait for their stupid posts and I go in there and I'll make comments. Anyway, I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but whatever. I don't care. But the example remains that PETA can put a post out on Twitter or Facebook or something and be like, look at this really sad mama bear or something like that. She'll find maybe they're filming a bear at the zoo who is an hour past feeding time and is upset about it, and you can just bears have this face expression. I love watching bears. And so they can find this really sad looking bear, and maybe it's because the other bear stole his candy. You never know why they're getting this footage, but what they do is they present it to the public as if it is some poor picked on mama bear that is oppressed by hunters, and that is so difficult to combat because it takes. Nobody's going to read 3 paragraphs of a response to that saying, hey, here's the thing, that bear, this is probably why it's behaving this way or whatever. Nobody's going to read all that. Nobody's going to read the science behind, one of the healthiest populations of black bears in the lower 48 happens to be in the state of Washington. And this is why spring bear hunting is effective for conservation and a traditional thing that is good and healthy for both humans and bears. Nobody's going to go in and read that. They're going to be swayed by the propagated emotional messages from these anti-hunting organizations. And that's where the bead needs to be placed from us. How do we combat this? Do you have an opinion as to how we go about removing these emotional pleas from anti-hunting organizations that are feeding into the non-hunter out there that could be easily swayed into becoming an anti-hunter?
we've got to start because as you know, being with social media, you can do almost anything. But
Yeah.
me, if I share something on my wall at Facebook or on Instagram that's pro hunting, that's full of facts and everything else, well, it reaches all my friends and all of their hunting friends and all of their hunting friends. So my reach,
Mm-hmm.
we don't reach the audience we really need to reach.
We run
Like
in
you were
our
saying,
circles. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and so we reach all of our circles, but the people we need to reach with that kind of information to combat the antis is all those people, that 70% that are out there that don't hunt, but they don't disapprove of hunting because they just don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, those are the ones that are so easy to be swayed by the antis with their fluff and their smoke and mirrors and all that stuff. And so that's who we have to reach. And it's hard. It's really hard.
It is hard, but there's got to be a way. I keep thinking of, because for people listening that might not understand like the gist of what we're talking about, what they do would be the exact same thing. Like if I were to go out and let's say I find a calf elk that was hit on the highway and I pulled that calf elk out into a field, and then I ripped this thing apart through the fur, and legs one way, the head's all over the other. I've got the guts pulled out, and then I like somehow Photoshop some pictures of wolves in there. Like they're just in there, they're ripping this calf apart, spitting ass all over the place, is blood and guts, and it's a really nasty scene. And then I post that, and I say something to the effect of, "Look at what these wolves have done again for the 27th time this week." That hyperbole, that's essentially what they're doing in the exact opposite context.
Yeah.
In a lot of these posts. And again, I follow some of these anti wolf trapping, wolf hunting, organizations for the very reason I just want to understand them.
Well, you have to,
and we have to understand that. And that's what they're doing. And so that's kind of what we're talking about. They're doing the opposite of what I just described. And that might be a little bit more exaggerated in some cases, but in a lot of cases,
wrong. You're exactly right, though.
Yeah. And so what Gary and I are talking about is how do we combat that kind of messaging? Because people have, let's face it, it's 2023. Hell, it's almost 2024. People have, social media has created this very short attention span for folks. They don't read articles. They don't read long-winded responses. We all have that Facebook friend that gets on and makes like a 1,500 word post. And like nobody reads that. Who reads that? I'm not reading that about how grateful you are for seeing your grandma at Thanksgiving or something. Yeah, nobody's reading that kind of stuff. And it just kind of highlights the fact that we all have these short attention spans. And so there's got to be a way to counter their propaganda with our own version of reality. And what I mean by that is we don't need to put propaganda out. All we need to do is tell our story and tell it in a clean, ethical way. Not, hey, check out this video where this coyote got his foot trapped in my foothold, and I just blew him away on screen with a, whatever.
And they're out there, man. They're
all over there. It drives me crazy. Crazy. Enough with that kind of shit, because that's the stuff that I just saw on Instagram, Gary. There was, I can't remember the page. It's like, it's not hunting and it's not really an anti-hunting page. It's like this, one of those pages that just likes to show nature stuff, And they were showing these hounds chasing this black bear. And the black bear comes out of the tree and he grabs one of the hounds and tosses the hounds. And the houndsman is filming this whole thing. And then the hounds start coming up. They're chasing this bear further down the ridge. It's a pretty brutal little scene. And, I got on there and started reading the comments about that. And people were like, I hope that houndsman that's filming that, I hope the bear gets him and rips his head off, because that poor bear. And they have a lot of sympathy for something like a bear, because we live in a world full, we grew up on teddy bears and the Care Bears and they've been what is that word when you like humanize animals?
When you humanize them, and that's what our draft policy is trying to do, because they're trying to show that policy here in Washington was trying to show like that wildlife are beneficiaries.
I
Wildlife
saw
are
that.
beneficiaries,
And
and it's yeah,
see for folks listening, like what somebody who could really simplify what Gary's talking about here is that Randy Newberg series where he's talking about what a
yes,
trust means. What is public trust? Who are the beneficiaries? Who are the shareholders? Who are the stakeholders? What is the public trust doctrine and what that
yes,
means? And so by making the wildlife the beneficiaries, you're humanizing what is actually the trust. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, man. I'm not as smart as Randy.
yeah, me either. But along those lines, that's what they try to do. They try to humanize animals
Mm-hmm.
for the bleeding hearts to want, so we can't hunt them, and that's just simply put it that way.
I hate it when there's a word for that and I can't remember. It's like morphism or like I can't remember the freaking word for that. But they're humanizing. It's like watch Bambi. That's humanizing. Bambi is this baby deer. It turns into a decent little 2-point, and runs around and they just demonize hunters throughout the whole show. Kills Bambi's mom, but they're humanizing him, and so people literally that have no exposure to this, they grew up thinking that these deer have these humanistic emotional attachments to each other, and these long term like a fawn is going to have an attachment to a baby rabbit named Thumper,
right?
And they're going to have this friendship, and so anyway, getting back to what you were saying, where you start humanizing these animals and wildlife, I get off. I get off. Quit laughing at me, Gary. Oh, anyways, but that is the danger. So a beneficiary to the public trust doctrine in which wildlife is managed for the betterment of the people, or not the betterment of the people. The wildlife is managed for the people. We are the stakeholders in this. Again, I don't want to slaughter this because again, like Randy, he's an accountant, so he's got public trust doctrine, all this terminology down like crazy.
You said, if you want, you've got to listen to that series because
everybody should go.
It's the one with Kim Thorburn that he breaks that down with, and she does a fantastic job with him on breaking that down. I didn't know near as much as I thought I did until I listened to that.
So Randy, it is like, this one's just, so he's got Andrew McKean on with him, but I just, what I was trying to do is just, I want to give everybody, whether you guys have Randy's podcast downloaded or not, but this is called Hunt Talk Radio, Randy Newberg Unfiltered. And you go through, and it is called The Future Role of Hunters and Hunting. And it's got like part 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there's 4 episodes, and they're all very, very good. Yeah. And I think that everybody should, the nice thing with Randy is he's not like one of those super controversial hunting figures. Like, have you ever noticed like Steve Rinella? There's some people that love him and some people that just hate him. And I don't get it, but whatever. Randy's not like that. Most people just, Randy's just, he's a great guy. In fact, he's a powerhouse when it comes to like understanding wildlife management and public lands and conservation. And he's got a lot of experience with this. So it is worth it for everybody to go back and listen to those 4 episodes because he does break down that much better than I can.
In part 4, he actually mentions the not mine. It's not my coalition. He actually mentions the Conservation Coalition of Washington because we are just a small group of people, grassroots, that we are working again, we're all volunteers. We don't do this for a living. We're not paid talking heads like someone from HSUS or the Washington Wildlife
exactly.
First. We're just men and women that want to keep hunting going, and we do this in our spare time, which we don't have any. But here we are, we're doing it. And Randy, it was Mike Hurst called me. He's like, I got goosebumps, man. You got to listen to the episode.
Nice.
Randy actually mentioned it.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and that's true. He's right with that because, and you're right with that. These organizations, these grassroots efforts, it's not like we have $500,000 sitting around to hire a couple of attorneys and lobby on our behalf. I think that there's maybe an avenue for that to happen. Were we all to come together in a way that is, consistent with like the levels of unity with HSUS and some of these other organizations. So there's ways, I think that there's an avenue for that, but right now, what it is,
if I could say something.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go.
So, Sportsman's Alliance
Mm-hmm.
has offered to help us out. We are actually having another fundraiser. Sportsman's Alliance, we already had one. One of my good buddies, Chris Cantrell, Bear Country Outdoors. Those guys have one up north at a brewery up north by Arlington. So Chris and James Forsland and Doug Joyce, they had a fundraiser up there with Sportsman's Alliance a couple months ago. But now Sportsman's Alliance is going to be having another fundraiser in Centralia, Washington, at the Southwest Washington Fairgrounds in the Blue Pavilion, I believe it is, on January 11th. So for more information, you can get a hold of the Conservation Coalition or our good buddy Joel Schwecker over at Black River Taxidermy. He's heading up that whole thing.
Yep, that's going to be a great event. Actually, I'm going to be sending some stuff for that. I think I might have a Spypoint camera or something sitting around here that I'm going to send over for that. But that's the kind of stuff that starts the ball rolling down the hill, and that's what we need to do is start getting this. Because we were talking earlier, you were saying like you can walk up to somebody who's a passionate hunter, and they don't even know what's going on. I was in Okanagan County a few weeks ago for my day job. And I went over there, and this particular customer of mine, I know he's an avid hunter. He's a big time hunter, and he didn't know that they took away spring bear. He didn't even know. This is a guy, that is out there. He hunts every year. He doesn't go to, like, we're all kind of in this organization. I'm as a vendor, and there is like the other side of that where they're managing these big commercial facilities or whatever. So, without putting out too much information, he flat out, everybody looks forward to this fall conference that they do. And it's perfect for me because it's right after September archery and right before all the October hunts start. It's that little window of time that's always open for me. So everybody looks forward to going to this conference. Not him, man. He flat out skips that conference, and because he's hunting and he's going on because apparently he gets his tag where it's open during this while this conference is going every year. The point is he's an avid hunter. He had no idea this was going on. He didn't know that there were hostile, and again, Okanagan County, that's like central Washington, right?
That's
central Washington.
Hunting central.
Hunting central. I'd love to hunt out there, man. There's some big ass mule deer.
Yeah, some of the best hunting in the state is in Okanagan County.
Yeah. Even after all the fires that have kind of ravaged that, because Okanagan has gotten hammered by fires the last few years. But anyway. Yeah, it surprises me. And so I guess that's another thing I was hoping to look at or discuss with you is, do you have any ideas how to touch folks like that are out there? We know they're passionate. We know they're hunters. They're outdoorsmen. They're committed to this lifestyle, but they're unaware and maybe asleep at the wheel. And I don't say that in a mean way. They're just not paying attention to it because hunters by nature are just not activists. How do we wake these people up?
It's got to come from within. It has to come within our core group. We've got to be able to spread the word to our fellow hunters. I mean, it's as simple as that. And barring putting a billboard in every highway on the state, I mean, you have to be able to. Man, I wish it was so much simpler than that, but it's not, because, like you were just saying, I was sitting at the October 27th meeting, sitting in the meeting, and I took my cell phone, I took a screenshot of behind me of all the people, and a good friend of mine texted me. He's like, where are you at? I said, I'm in Olympia at a commission meeting. Why are you there? I told him what was going on. He's like, since when's that been going on?
Oh,
like
man,
you said, it amazes me. This is a guy that I'm friends with.
Yeah.
And so I look at that as like, man, he should know, because I should have told him. So I think it's got to be word of mouth. I think people, just like you said, by nature, hunters just want to be left alone. We don't want to get involved. All we want to do is hunt, fish, think about hunting and fishing, and prepare for hunting and fishing. That's all we want to do.
Yeah,
we don't want to be bothered by this. And I've been saying this lately. I said it's basically in this day and age, especially in Washington State, you cannot be, or you can't. God damn it, I can't think of it now.
That's what happens. I got you on the spot.
I know, right? You cannot be a hunter in this state and not be politically active anymore. And by politically, I don't mean like, left and right and all that malarkey. It's just you have to be, because this is political. Our governor put these people in position to do what they're doing to us.
Yeah.
So this is a political move. So this day and age, you have to be political. You can't sit on your laurels anymore. And that means spreading the word.
I couldn't agree more. If you value hunting and if you value the future of hunting and want to see hunting and conservation through hunting and wildlife management through hunting continue for future generations, you cannot be apolitical on this. You can't just sit it out. And I know how they feel, man. I have a disdain. I just have a disdain for politics in general. I don't trust politicians. I don't care if they're left or right. I think I'm just long enough in the tooth that they've all screwed me over, man. I just don't trust them. And so, but the time to sit quiet.
Oh, I know. That meeting on the 27th, when I was sitting there at that meeting that weekend, it was a Friday. Mm-hmm. And that was the day before opening day of East Side Modern Firearm Elk in Washington State. And that's when they're having a meeting. And the 28th was opening day.
That's interesting timing. And you guys have a late rifle hunt.
Yeah, exactly. And we still had 200 hunters there. So luckily this year, I hunted muzzleloader. So my elk hunt was already done. Usually we hunt modern. For whatever reason, I picked muzzleloader this year. So I was available. So, and that's another thing, the timing of these meetings, they're right in the middle of hunting season, most of the big juicy ones. So
yeah, I noticed that a couple of years ago, they put to use your words, a big juicy commission meeting with public comment. It was like, I want to say it was archery elk season or something, but I remember
they'll do it right in the middle of archery.
Yeah, I remember commenting on the timing of it. Oh, that's convenient. Why don't we just start scheduling meetings when there's a We Hate Hunters convention in Las Vegas or something,
convention.
Right? Yeah. And so I don't know. I think that, you mentioned a couple things. I'll play like 20 questions with you here for a minute if you're good with that.
Shit.
So, because again, right now, I think what is the most important, we have this big focus on trying to reason with the anti-hunting movement. That's not going to work. We have this push to try to push science over emotion or maybe get too mean and aggressive with some of these folks. None of that's working. They don't care about the science. They don't care. Emotion trumps science. And they honestly, sometimes they could, actually, I won't even say that. Science can go two ways. I'll say it that way. And so it could be not necessarily manipulated, but it could be presented in a way that makes a case for both sides. This is why I'm leery of the science side. Okay. So all that aside, but we have to get the word out there, and it's time to get more hunters, especially in the state of Washington, involved. So you mentioned billboards. Are billboards a terrible idea in your mind? Like,
no, they're not. I wish.
Are they?
It's just they're expensive.
They are expensive. I know all about billboards. For what I do with my day job, they're expensive.
We talked about, and again, us being a grassroots, we're not a 501c3. We're not a nonprofit, nothing. So like we're trying to develop a website. Well, that's all on our dime. So we actually discussed the possibility of a billboard. Man, that's like $5,000. And so we don't have that kind. We don't have $5,000.
I'll negotiate on your. We can get them for cheaper.
I have to talk to you
then. Yeah. I've rented lots of billboards. So that's an option, and I think that some people might be listening to that. Well, what's a billboard going to do? Well, a billboard is going to put in the minds of non-hunters that maybe there is another side to the story than what HSUS is putting out there, right? And that's all we need. We just need people to be aware that there is a counter argument to some of the propaganda that's being fed to the public. Okay, so there's billboard idea, and again, this is all going to be derived at being able to have the funding for it. So we've got to figure out how to do the funding, which I'm more than willing to help with. I will flat out if somebody wants a lame Western Huntsman T-shirt or whatever, I will put all that money proceed into doing this kind of stuff. So I have no qualms about that. We just need to organize it and figure it out and get people to actually do it. So here's another idea I've had floating around. What about a series of videos that get put onto social media? That, you know how you could do that little thing where you pay to promote the video, and if you're scrolling through social media, you'll see a sponsored. What if we had a series of videos that we made that were very, eye-catching from a sense of somebody that's not a hunter maybe because they're not going to want to see just some old dude like me talking about how great hunting is. They're not going to want to see that. But somebody talking about the lifestyle centered around hunting, maybe not necessarily out there in the field shooting a deer kind of thing, but it's something that is centered around hunting, that discusses and almost promotes the fact that the North American model of wildlife conservation is kind of like a duty for all Americans to understand.
Absolutely.
And maybe a story about, hey, like my daughter, she got this deer, and we do all our own butchering, so we did it here, and now we've got months of a meat supply that's very healthy, and talk about the health aspect of it. I'm totally spitballing here. It's not like I have all this thought out, man. So if you have input,
it makes sense, because when you say, because when you can use stuff like that to, even if it's just a short 12-second, you can show that hunting brings families together.
My thought was a minute or less.
Yeah, because even at one of the commission meetings, we had two kids speak, a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, and then another gal got up there a little bit later, talked about duck hunting with her daughter. All the commissioners, that's the ones that they remembered.
The stories,
those hit home, those hit them in the fields, and that's what you got to do.
So the humanism behind hunting, I think, is what really helps our cause.
Yeah, I do too.
Not the jackass that shoots a coyote in a foothold and displays that all over for Aunt Sally to see. Yeah. Or that, you remember those kids a couple of years back, I think they were in the southeast or something, back there, where they had wounded that deer, and then they were just beating on it. They were kicking it, and the deer still see stuff like that. Yeah. It's just like, you're a military guy. I don't know if you remember, back in '99, I had just gotten out of boot camp, and a couple of Marines were on leave, and they went out to the Mojave Desert or somewhere and poached a wild horse. It was national news. And the thing with that is, it's not like they were like two dudes went out and killed a wild horse, poached a wild horse. No, it was two United States Marines went out and heartlessly, brutally killed and poached a wild horse. So it reflected on the entirety of the Marine Corps. And so that's what I'm talking about, where we have some of these negative things that happen within the hunting community that reflect upon all of us. And that's what we have to be super cognizant of and police ourselves with. And we've had lots of discussions, especially last winter, with my buddy Chris Rowe and Guy Duplantier on this topic. But
those are some of my favorite guys on your show.
What's that?
Those are some of my favorite guys on your show.
Oh man, I love those guys. I love those guys. So I was just texting with Chris the other night. So anyway, but that's going to be, I think, an important thing. And so if we could figure out how to fund making these little 1 minute, which that doesn't cost, I could go out with my cell phone and do it.
Absolutely.
And we just if we designated 500 hunters to all make videos like that, if we could promote that somehow and have all 500 of those hunters put $20 on their debit card to sponsor that, to target non-hunters on social media posts, just telling the humanistic story behind hunting. I don't know. What do you think? Does that sound dumb to you?
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, because like you said, if you can get, even if it's like a 12 to 15 second blurb that is like a YouTube commercial,
Yeah.
I mean, I watch YouTube all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. Like a YouTube commercial. That's a great idea, actually.
Because I watch YouTube all the time, and half the shit I see on the commercials don't have anything to do with what I like to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, to have that come through, and like you said, though, it's got to be tasteful. Can't be blood and guts.
Yeah, no, just simple humanistic. Simple humanistic storytelling, and the thing that to the point that you just made, I don't know. We'd have to figure it out, but just something humanistic that tells a story that is, whether it's 12 seconds or a minute, that connects people that don't have any experience with it, and tells them a different side of the story. I don't know. Again, I'm spitballing here, so I keep going blank. I had a point to say something and I lost it.
Well, like you said, like social media. With social media, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So even just because we've been labeled as everything's a trophy hunter.
Yeah, everybody's a trophy hunters. That's what bear hunters are. They're all trophy hunters.
Oh yeah, we're all trophy hunters, and it's like I actually made that distinction in one of my speeches one time. It's like, hey, you guys went to college, right? You got this big fancy diploma that's hanging on your wall, right? You call that a trophy? Hell yeah, you do. Just like that set of antlers hanging back there. That's a trophy.
Yeah.
Because I remember that hunt, just like you remember graduating from college. I mean, it's one of those deals where it's the trophy aspect doesn't mean that I just left the animal to rot and just took the horns. It's a totally different thing. It's so blown out of proportion with this trophy hunting bullshit. It's not even funny.
See, we could do a series of videos talking about the fact that the term trophy hunting has hijacked the reality of what trophy hunting actually is. Because trophy hunting, if anybody wants to go back and listen to the episode I did 2 summers ago with Ike Eastman, discussing about how trophy hunting has a conservation aspect to it. He's very effective at articulating how that works. But these little videos, everybody would have to be willing to chip in $10 to $20 to pay for their own sponsored thing, and I'd even be willing to put together a website to show people how to do that, because again, in my day job, man, I do a lot of sales and marketing and whatnot, and so I'm just familiar with all that.
Well,
but
we can definitely stay in touch with the coalition and do that.
Yeah, and let's do that. And then you think about like what the RMEF does. They'll put these little blips out of why hunting is conservation, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of expanding on that idea and using that as like a foundational building block, but instead of just like this picture, this image, this graphic saying, here's why hunting is conservation, because now there's this many elk because of the, organizations like the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. I love that stuff. That's great for hunters, but I don't think that's going to speak to the non-hunter. We need to make it a video that is humanistic. Do you have any other ideas to touch people that like reach out and touch the non-hunter? Like, you can get real crazy. We could all get together and do like a really kick-ass Super Bowl commercial, right?
Wow.
But
yeah.
We need millions on that one.
Exactly. And we in the coalition, we discussed that too, trying to get 30 seconds of airtime during something, where we know that non-hunters are going to be watching. And again, if it's done tastefully, you can actually sway someone. You could actually get someone to go,
think so.
You know what? Maybe those anti-hunting groups are, full of crap. So,
because
I agree.
I think that when you boil it, and again, I know people may not want to. Am I keeping you too long, man? Are you good for a minute? Okay. When you boil it down to how all this stuff kind of has its foundational essence as to what it grows out of, which is political and fanatical extremism.
Yeah.
And I do believe that that's what animal rights activists are. I believe that they are extremists. I think they're the same kind of folks that suck people into this unhealthy vegan lifestyle that's almost cult-like. I believe it's the same people that suck our kids into this gender confusion era, and they do things that are permanent to their body that they'll never be able to recover from, and I think that that's evil. And I don't mind saying it. I don't expect you to respond to some of this stuff, but
it's okay.
I believe that a lot of the environmentalism out there is based out of the same premise where they're trying to sell us a bit of goods that has no foundation to it. And this is in an effort to have control of the dialogue and maybe our tax money and things like that. And all this stuff is fanaticism. And so what we have to do is expose it as what it is, which is fanaticism. And I don't think that it's that difficult to do, but it takes a coordinated effort from a lot of people that have this passion to pursue that goal, pursue this objective of protecting our thing, our lifestyle, this hunting lifestyle that we enjoy. What say you on that? Hey, what are you drinking there?
Water.
Oh, okay. You're a good man.
I finished my beer.
I know. I had a little cup of whiskey going, and I'm totally out, man. Really bummed about it.
Yeah, but no, I agree. I mean, the extremism, we're seeing it more and more and more here in Washington. The groups. I mean, the backhanded or not backhand. That's not the right word.
The backdoor room deals.
Well, yeah, I mean the backdoor deals. That's one thing too with the commission. Our commission, we even have, like, with extremism on the commission. The commissioners have actually been in contact with anti-hunting groups during commission votes. I mean, it that's how bad it is. And the crazy part is since it is political and it is extreme, there's no repercussions for them, because when it comes from all the way at the top at the governor and he ain't doing shit about it, well, nothing's gonna happen. Mm-hmm. So the extremism is just kind of let go. But then here we are, just this small little group. We come in. These extremists in Washington have been used to getting their way. They've been used to, well, hunters are quiet. They're stupid. Yep. They're not going to say anything.
They're too busy fighting over whether you're a bow hunter or a
6.5 man bunts and all this other crap. Yep. So they see that. They know that we're going to implode within, because that's what we do. And they've used that to their advantage for so long. Well, now here we are. We're not an extreme group. We're a small group of people that have just done nothing but show up. Yeah, and we have thrown a monkey wrench into all that bullshit. And so now the extremism is getting even worse, because that's all they know how to do. That's all they know how to do.
It's fanaticism. Yeah, and
fanaticism. Yes, exactly.
Where do you think? And because before I say that, I want to commend you guys in Washington, because the thing is with all the frustrations that have come out of Washington and the politics and the back door, or closed door, sounds almost, never mind, the closed door meetings, that seem to come out of, some of the stuff going on, the shenanigans in Washington, because, we all know Seattle and that kind of I-5 corridor is home to a lot of these extremists, and it's like this hub of extreme leftism, whether it's fanatical animal rights stuff or name your cause, name your bleeding heart. It's there. It's all there. And so, but through all that, it's too bad too, man, because like Washington, man, I wish it was friendlier to non-residents in terms, I spend all this time in Washington. It's great country, man. And I say this all the time. It's great country.
It is. I love living here. I love this state, but
yeah,
it's hard sometimes.
But some of the light and some of the, inspiration, if you will, has come out of Washington with you guys kind of coming together. And, I know you have a lot of new friends out of this, and you have new acquaintances and these grassroots efforts that are being formulated in Washington are going to be, I think, because this stuff is not going to stay in Washington, California, and New Mexico, and Colorado. This stuff is going to spread to other states. We live in, Montana and Idaho where that is just super foreign to us. But how foreign is that going to be if we let it go in Washington in 10 years from now? And so, between you and Mike Hers and Josh Capel, I had Kelsey and Corey on, in that other episode where we were talking about this, and the way you guys have come together and formulated a grassroots effort group to make change and demand this. and Brad Thompson doing what he's doing over there with petitions and whatnot. This is great stuff, and this is what's going to be kind of the platform that maybe if it is getting bad in Montana and Idaho and Utah and Arizona and all these other states down the road, we're going to look to, okay, how did Washington do it? How did those hunters in Washington formulate a plan to combat this, and how are they successful? And so it sucks for you guys, but you're kind of like the pioneers as to how this is going to happen. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I do. It does make sense, and honestly, it does suck. I was just talking to someone the other day. They said something about this is, you're doing this because it's your hobby. Like, no, hunting's my hobby. Defending my freaking right to hunt sucks.
Yeah,
but I have to, and I'm going to continue to do it until I'm 6 feet under. I'm not going to. And our coalition, we're not stopping. One thing we've learned about this little grassroots movement is we get to talk to people that will talk to us before they will talk to bigger name groups and individuals, because it's just kind of because we're just common folk.
Yeah,
just
grassroots.
Want to say hunting in our state. And
more approachable, maybe. Is that
more
what it
approachable? Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's. Hold on here. There we go. I think that again, you're kind of, the thing is you guys don't have a will to recreate. There's no will before you. And so it's like this learning curve that has taken place in real time. And
yes,
that's why, folks like me, I see that, I identify that, and I'm not trying to pat my own back, but I think that if we don't learn with you, what I say by me, we is folks that are in states like mine, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, these states where that is so foreign to us. We don't have these big metropolitan areas that have these like strongholds of fanaticism, and this growing anti-hunting group. I mean, Wyoming has Jackson, so I could blame. I like to throw that out there just to give the Eastman guys a hard time that Wyoming does have Jackson. Come on now, and but like the rest of us, we don't have these major metro fanaticism type strongholds where I can go to some big towns in Montana. I can go to Missoula, and you know what? I can get a steak at like all the restaurants. It's not like half of them are vegan, trying to bring lettuce, out and ice water or whatever. But we have like this sense of reality as to what it means to be free and pursuant of our own destiny in places like this. And so we have to recognize the fact that can translate from Washington to here very easily.
Yes, very quick. That's why I'm glad that like a podcast like yours, with the reach you have in Idaho, Montana, areas like that a lot of our podcasts over here on the west side aren't reaching you guys. So it's really cool that we can get word, because, and I hope that, like you just said, that you're paying attention to what we're doing. I hope other states and other people are doing the same thing, because Charles Whitwam from Howell says it best. He told me, he goes, Gary, the tentacles of this anti-hunting movement are wide.
Yes, they are. Yep. He couldn't be more right with that.
Case in point, one of the gals that is heading up one of the main players in that Cougar bullshit that's happening in Colorado came from Washington Wildlife First.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. And so,
so they're migrating, and they're not going to stop. So my message to anybody is, if you're in a state where you think you're secure, like it'll never happen. Hey man, 25 years ago here in Washington, I thought the same thing.
Oh, I would have too.
Here we are.
When I first got out of the service, this was the early 2000s. I got out in 2003, right? And my buddy of mine had a construction company in Spokane, Washington. And so he offered me a job, and that's how I ended up here, and I moved up to, I only lasted in Spokane a few months, and then I moved over to the Idaho side. And it had nothing to do with, I was still young. I didn't care. I was just out of the service. All I cared about was how long elk seasons were. And so
Yeah,
I was like looking at Idaho and I'm like, man, the seasons are way longer in Idaho. I'm
way
moving
better.
over there. Shit, it's 10 minutes down the road. I'm moving to Idaho. So I moved to
Yeah.
Post Falls, Idaho, man. And good old Post Falls did me well. But the point is even then, this was early 2004, the time frame I'm talking about. I would have never suspected that out of the state of Washington. It just, and partly was I wasn't that involved in the political side of things, but two, it just wasn't like this big thing. It wasn't like there was activism going on trying to eliminate this lifestyle that we love and are so passionate about. And so, we could learn a lot. The rest of us, for those of you listening that are sitting in downtown Boise or over in Billings, Montana, or if you're maybe you're a big time pheasant hunter out of Casper, Wyoming, we hear some of this, and you might want to have this initial reaction to just reject this kind of episode as some foreign issue happening in a foreign, far off place. It's not. It's so not. It's not happening in a far off place.
It is on your doorstep.
And what you just said, those tentacles. Yes. And so one of my biggest motivations to be involved with this is to ensure that we are successful in Washington so that when those tentacles start taking root in places like Boise, Idaho, and Billings, Montana, and Casper, Wyoming, we have a playbook that we can react to and counter that quickly before it gets out of hand like it has there. And exactly. So that's what has to happen. So maybe you can call that some selfish motivation. I see you got another beer. Did you get another beer? You're a Busch guy, huh?
Well, I usually drink a Busch latte, but this is just plain Busch.
Well, if I ever, one day we're going to meet in person, and yes. I'm going to bring you a case of beer, man, because I really do. I respect what you do, and I respect what, all those folks that were on the last episode, Mike and Josh and Corey and Kelsey. There's a lot of inspiration to be had.
We have a good group of people.
You do.
We're about 30-ish. Last I kept count. We've got one 18-year-old kid too that's a breathing fire. I mean,
is he the one that just put out that video in the garage?
Yeah, it was. That's Dane.
Proud of him, man.
Leash. That kid is a
heck yeah.
So,
heck yeah.
And that's just it. So we the spectrum is from an 18-year-old kid to a 55-year-old turd like me, and all walks of life in between, men and women. And it just, we all came together, and there's no playbook. We're just kind of winging it. And I just think we're in the right direction.
Sorry, I shut my video. You were kind of cutting out there. I shut my video off for a minute. I'm going to let my internet catch up. But what message would you like to leave, Gary? Because I know you're being sarcastic about your age, right? And let's face it, you're way older than I am. But man, I have more gray. I have more gray in my beard than you do. I feel like I don't know how you're like maintaining such a young stature.
I don't know.
But
either.
It's fantastic. But no, totally kidding about that. But what I'm saying with that is Gary, you've been doing this hunting lifestyle for a long time. You've seen things transition. Like that young stud that put out that video the other day you were referring to, he hasn't seen what it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? No. Guys like you and I have. And so we've seen what it used to be in like the 80s and 90s. And, I'm still just in my early 20s. No, I'm kidding.
I'm 39.
Yeah, I'm only 20. No, I'm 43. 43. And so, I remember hunting in the 1980s. I remember hunting in the 1990s. Yeah. I remember what the reaction was from society. I mean, you and I went to schools that shut down during deer season. So
we had guns in our trucks.
I did, man. I had my football coach wanted to see my deer rifle, and he came out to my truck and grabbed it off my gun rack and was checking it out and was like, "Yeah, this will do the job, buddy." And it was an old 30-06. It hurt like hell because it, And so, but I guess that leads back to what I was asking you is, what message do you have for folks you've seen this change over the years, and you've seen it dramatically shift over the last half a decade in Washington. What warning do you have for people, and what advice do you have for some of the youngsters that are just stepping their their young toes into this lake?
Yeah. Number one is, don't think it can't come to you, because it can, and it will. Because like you were saying, we have a hotbed of extremism and stuff in Washington State with that I-5 corridor, and it's even getting bad even in places like Spokane. It's starting to spread.
Yeah.
That being said, just because you're in Missouri or in a couple or a state where there's really not that much happening, they're working on it. This right here, Washington State is not the hotbed, ground zero. I mean, they want to get that. It's a low hanging fruit. They know they can get by because they got a liberal governor that did all this stuff to us. And so that is just it. My main thing is just don't think it can't happen to you. Prepare for when it does. Don't sit on your ass. I mean, yeah, please go out, enjoy your hunting seasons. This isn't doom and gloom. I'm not telling you, to that you can't still hunt and stuff. But the point is you've got to be ready to fight, and you've got to stay ready, and pay attention to your commissions. Pay attention to your Department of Fish and Wildlife. Pay attention to who the biologists are. So we've had biologists change hands, and we go, whoa, where'd they go? Next thing you know, they're replaced with another biologist that isn't on our team, basically. But we've also got some good, and let me digress real quick, because our Fish and Wildlife Commission has some fantastic people on the commission.
Oh, absolutely. You guys really do. Jim,
on our commission that are awesome people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have to mention their names. They know who they are. So it's one of those deals where it's just it's the extremists that are on that commission that have ties to extremist anti-hunting groups.
Yeah.
So my main thing would be to just don't sit on your ass. Stay involved, stay informed, and just always question. Always question. And I've said this before, and this is where I get in trouble. I always say, in the words of Dalton from Roadhouse, be nice until it's time not to be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice, Gary. Actually, that's pretty epic advice. And I would add one thing to that. Don't see it as like this doom and gloom, and don't see it as like you're some victim because now you have to fight. This is not new stuff from what has transitioned to is this extremist animal rights activist kind of thing. But you're not the first one to be in this predicament.
No,
not to keep bringing Randy Newberg back into it, but he's been advocating for public land and public land access for many decades, and he had mentors that were doing the same thing for him. And so what you're dealing with is just a natural transition of what our fight is. This is what it's developed into. We still have public land fights to deal with. We still have access, and we still have hunter engagement or overly engaged hunters, or we've even got platforms out there that hate platforms like mine because they think we promote so much hunting that it's ruining hunting. You've got all of that going on. And it all exists, and that's okay. Let them focus on stuff like that. What you need to focus on as a young hunter, if you're out there listening to this, is our fight today in this generation is the anti-hunting movement. It's not picking on Cam Haynes because he promotes elk hunting. It's not picking on your neighbor because he fires a 6.5. Actually, I have a 6.5 Savage, and I freaking love this thing, dude. Pretty sweet. I put one of those Silencer Central suppressor that
nice.
That sturdy cool. On it. Ooh, man. Anyway, I get excited about firearms anyway. So, I'll shoot whatever. But this infighting that we have and we see on social media, it's all of that is exaggerated because you could say whatever the hell you want and not get punched in the mouth, and that's what social media has developed. But all that stuff is really that's like a bunch of small rocks during while we're climbing the mountain that is the fight against the anti-hunting movement. Yeah. And so that's what you need to focus on. And you're not the first one to have to go through this fight. So it's time for us all to buckle up. We need to start putting our money where our mouth is, our time where our mouth is. This stuff, it's here and it's real. And just because it's happening in Washington and Colorado and some of these places that we consider, far away, does not mean that it is not knocking on our door. So we appreciate you, Gary.
Yeah, no problem. And for the young hunters that are out there, just remember, if you get in the fight now, because our fight now is your future tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So we are trying to fight so you kids have hunting in Washington State or nationwide or worldwide. I mean, this isn't just a Washington or a United States thing. This is nationwide, or worldwide. So
worldwide for sure.
Yeah. So
absolutely. There is no more extremist and anti-hunter than the European ones. I mean, they are bloodthirsty anti-hunting organizations over there. They send me they find me and send me nasty emails all the time. Yeah, it's crazy. Some of the stuff I've gotten from like England. I'm like, dude, I've never gone hunting in England. What are you picking on me for? I'll come over there and whoop your little ass, boy. so anyway, here's kind of what I'd like to kind of wrap this up with, Gary, if you will. Like sure. I'm going to start jotting down some ideas and formulating some plans that hopefully we could figure out a way to move this needle. Right? Yes, let's do it. There we go. Sorry, my computer keeps like falling back. My laptop is getting old, man. Anyway, I want to start jotting some things down and sending them over to you and the other members of the coalition, and see if we could start brainstorming some ways to get information. I think there's like 3 key things that we need to do as a whole, as hunters. I think we need to get this information, the messaging to other sportsmen out there that are, like we were talking about, that we feel are somewhat asleep at the wheel. Yeah, they're aloof to it. We need to get in front of them and spread that information. Like you said, word of mouth, I think, is going to be the best way to do that. So you guys listening, whether you share this podcast or you share like Randy's podcast or the podcast that you were referring to earlier, what was that podcast called?
The Broadside.
The Broadside. Yeah. Share Andy's podcast, that Broadside podcast out there. Those kind of episodes. Just share them with like pick 10 people and share them. And I'm not asking you to do that to grow my podcast, right? If it's this one, Randy's, the Broadside, any of them, share them.
And if you're down at the local Elks Lodge having a couple drinks with your buddies,
tell them, talk about it.
And tell their brother-in-law, and tell that guy's brother-in-law to tell his freaking son, and tell somebody else's aunt that can tell. It's got to spread. We have to spread.
If everybody listening to this episode told 3 people about the issues going on in Washington, it would be a wildfire at that point. So that's number 1. Number 2 is getting the messaging and the humanistic story side of things to the non-hunter. I'm not talking about the anti-hunter, the non-hunter. The folks that are, they're living their life, they're making their mortgage payments and going to work, sitting in a cubicle. They've never had any real exposure to hunting. They don't quite understand it. They've seen Bambi and thought that hunter that shot Bambi's mom was an asshole. But they're right on that. They still like to go get a ribeye. Right. That's kind of like your common American. How do we get in front of them, whether it's through these videos we were discussing or billboards or we should figure out a way to do a Super Bowl commercial. I'm going to get to the bottom of that. Anyway, we need a few million bucks.
We might be able to do it.
Yeah, I think we can. Come on. There's how many hunters? There are like somewhere around 25 million hunters in the United States. If every one of them gave $2 to this cause,
could you imagine?
We could create a kick-ass commercial during the Super Bowl. Like Beyonce would be blown away. Yes. You know what I'm saying? So, just stuff like that. So I'm going to jot down some stuff and send it over to you guys. Okay. And the third thing is we need to start policing ourselves as hunters and start putting an end to the hostile infighting over weapons choice or residents versus non-residents, to all this bullshit that we all get hung up on, and start policing ourselves from a sense of, if you're posting a video about hunting on social media for all the world to see, think about, is Aunt Sally going to see that and have a negative reaction to hunters?
Yeah.
We all need to look at that. Is Aunt Sally's not going to think you're cool putting a bullet in the forehead of a coyote that's got his legs stuck in a foothold because that coyote looks like her dog from 20 years ago?
No kidding. I mean,
that's the kind of shit.
And you know what? Call me soft. Call me a wuss. I don't care. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do a grip and grin on social media.
No, not at all.
Be tasteful. You know, with their entrails hanging out and the guts hanging out and all this other crap, that's got to go. I know it sucks, but it's the world we live in. If we don't change, like you just said, if we don't change the way we're doing shit and police ourselves, it's going to be our own fault.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've heard it said a million times. I think it was Chris that was telling me, Chris Rowe, that the fishing community does a great job of policing themselves and holding themselves accountable online and social media and stuff like that. We need to be more like that. But those are the three things, Gary, that I can see. Again, just to kind of summarize that, it's we need to reach out to the hunters that don't know about what's going on and get them involved. We need to reach out to the non-hunter and help them understand the humanistic side to hunting and our primitive way of life that has been around since the beginning of time, and how that ties into conservation and why animals are thriving today because of this. And thirdly, policing our own from a sense of reducing this infighting, this hostility, and being careful and cognizant of what we're sharing because we don't want to offend Aunt Sally. And those are the three things. Is there anything you'd add to that?
No, those three things I think are money, because if we could just get those three things accomplished, I mean, we would be right? So far ahead of the game that if we could just get people to stop bitching online at each other, that'd be a major step.
Yeah,
and I just wish that people could see how that looks, because like I said, I know they're watching. I know they're watching because we've got it. We have it on record that they watch it.
Yeah.
And they use it. And
yeah, I agree. And so I guess that's the ask of the audience listening to this episode.
Yeah.
Is consider those three things. And Gary, I'd add a fourth, that we need more leaders like you. Starting these grassroots efforts. I mean that. I really mean that. We need more leaders like you that are leading the charge and leading us through some of these tumultuous times that we have coming up. But the ask that I would leave the audience with is, I feel like there was a lot of good stuff that we discussed in this episode. Share this episode with folks. And share Randy's episodes. Share those Broadside podcast episodes. But selfishly, share the Western Huntsman episode with Gary Strassburg, right?
Yeah.
But I do. I think that's important. I think if you're a hunter and you know three other hunters and maybe they're not big podcast listeners, text this. You can go right into Apple. You can hit those three little dots and it says share. Text it to three people that you know. If everybody did that, man, we could really get this information out there.
Reach.
Yeah, we can. And I don't say that again. I don't say that to grow this particular podcast, guys. This show is already. I mean, it is 100 times bigger than I ever thought it would ever get. I just don't know how else to say that other than it's way bigger than I ever thought it would be. I'm not quitting my day job to be a full-time podcaster. I like my day job. I like my company, and I'm going to continue doing that. So this isn't like some motivation for that. It is strictly it would just be fantastic if we all shared it to get this information out there.
I agree 100%. And don't be scared to step into the freaking ring.
Yeah.
You've got to be active. You've got to be active. Like I said earlier, you cannot sit on your laurels and you can't not be politically active anymore. You have to, or else we're going to lose.
Exactly. This has been a great conversation, Gary. It's been one of my favorites in a long time.
I had a good time, man.
No, we're going to have to do this again. And let's just keep in touch. But I'm gonna send you an email over the next few weeks with some ideas, and maybe we can get the other folks from the coalition in on that email chain where we can just start communicating some ideas and figure out ways to fund them, and go from there. Let's start. Instead of just talking about it, let's start taking some action. And you guys have been taking action, right? But I'm talking from my side. That's what it takes.
You've just got to do it. I mean, I sat on my ass for years. Oh man, maybe somebody will do that.
Oh yeah,
well, yeah. What? I'm not somebody.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we all can come together and make an actual difference, not only for the future of hunting, but for the future of wildlife, and like this thing that I don't think people understand how good we have it, Gary. In America, we have millions of acres of public access that we could go hunt on. And this is something that is not acceptable in Europe. And it's totally managed differently in Africa and Asia. Forget it. I mean, it's just such a unique thing that the United States and Canada has.
People want to bitch about fixed blade versus, mechanical.
Yeah, I know. I don't care. I don't care. I don't know how to make people understand, help them understand that, like, your caliber and your opinion as to what is the so-called best deer gun or elk gun or bear gun or whatever.
Nobody gives a shit.
Kim Kardashian cares more about that than I do. I don't care. I care about the future of hunting, and I want you to go out with the weapon that you're most comfortable with and be as lethal as you can be. That's all I care about,
Yep.
So, Gary, great stuff, brother.
Thanks, man.
I really
appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, no, anytime. Seriously, let's do this again. Tell everybody again where they could find you on Instagram and the coalition.
Yeah, just Gary Strassburg on Instagram, or just my name on Facebook. I'm on there as well. Conservation Coalition of Washington on Instagram. We do have an Instagram page. I'm going to be updating the link tree very soon. We have a little link tree on there to get you directly to the commission, where to sign up, how to sign up. And if you have any questions on how to talk, who to talk to. As a matter of fact, I just had someone get a hold of me from Australia that just signed up to speak at the commission meeting on Friday. Sue Tidwell.
What a stud. Awesome. How cool is that?
So, yeah. Author Sue Tidwell is going to speak at the commission meeting. So,
fantastic! That's really good to hear. I Sue was on the show last year.
He just got a hold of me this afternoon and said, "Hey, can you send me some information because I just signed up to speak."
I think really highly of Sue. She's very articulate. Yeah. She, what's great about Sue, and getting her on that commission to speak is she came at this whole hunting thing from kind of like that non-hunting perspective. She didn't understand it. And she watched that conservation effort in Africa, because they have a totally different, their system's way different than the North American model, but it works. It's a great effective system that helps the local folks. And she saw all that. And then she was able to take that and contrast it with the North American model and the way we do things here and how effective it is here. Yeah. Powerful stuff, Gary. Awesome. All right, my brother. Well, stick on the line, but for everybody listening, check out Gary Strassburg and the Conservation Coalition of Washington.
There you go.
Those both of those links will be in the show notes. And if you guys, it's been brought to my attention, if you don't know how to get to the show notes when you're like on Apple podcasts or Spotify or whatever, you just kind of you just scroll down a little bit. It'll pull all the show notes up, and it'll give you all the links to like the show sponsors. And I want to thank the show sponsors, and it really means a lot when you guys support those show sponsors, because they make this show possible. So I appreciate that. But check it out in the show notes. And Gary, keep trucking along, brother. Keep doing what you're doing. I really appreciate it. You're an inspiration. We need more leaders like you. And I can't wait to do this again with you.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on, man. Honor.
You made it. That's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram at The Western Huntsman and write us a good review at Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.